Hi folks, pupils ask me all the time, how do I get better at RUAE, at my close reading, without having to do endless past papers? And this is the answer that I like to give them. I'm going to take you through a 10-step programme on boosting your RUAE skills through newspaper analysis. This is for both National 5 and higher English pupils. And before I get started, I just want to say thank you to the different teachers who have made similar resources to this that I have shamelessly stolen to use in these slides. So let's get started. Step 1. Find a newspaper article that interests you and note the title, author and date of publication. So if you're doing this on paper, you could note these things down, or if you're typing it into a Word document, you can type it in there. Selecting the newspaper article can be a bit of a barrier for some people, so here's some advice from me. First of all, opinion pieces are the way forward. You don't want a news story. News stories don't tend to be as useful for this type of activity, and it's certainly not a news story as such that you would get in a National 5 or higher RUAE paper. So opinion pieces are where you want to go. A good first stop would be Twitter. If you use Twitter, you can look up the hashtag N5HRUAE, which obviously stands for Nat5 Higher RUAE, Reading for Understanding, Analysis and Evaluation. Lots of teachers across Scotland use this to post articles every single day. So if you can't think of something that interests you, you might just want to go look at that hashtag and find something that they've selected in advance. What about the publications? What kind of places do you want to go for? Well, we're always banging on about quality newspapers, so we're talking about the broadsheets. So outlets such as The Guardian. Why do so many English teachers post from The Guardian on Twitter? It's because there's no paywall and you don't have to give your email address or any details to look at any of the articles on The Guardian's website. So it does tend to get used more often than any other site. Other places such as The Scotsman and The Telegraph have been used in RUE past papers. You don't have to stick to newspapers though. There are some high quality magazines that I like to use sometimes. So outlets such as Vulture, which is an online magazine, or The New Yorker, which is a fairly high quality journalistic outlet as well. You may also have a favourite journalist. Does anyone have a favourite journalist? Well, some of the ones that I like to continually look up are Caitlin Moran and Hadley Freeman, two writers who I enjoy. I like their style, I like their tone. They write about things that I'm usually quite interested in. So you might find yourself going down the route of your hobby. So if you're into a particular sport or music, films, television, anything at all, science, technology, the environment, you might want to go find someone who specialises in that works for one of these newspapers, and then they might be the person that you return to whenever you do these newspaper analysis tasks. Just to let you see here, this is what the opinion page looks like on the Guardian's film website, which is one that I obviously look at quite a lot because I'm really into reading about cinema. So you should be able to find on whichever website you look at something like this, the opinion section, and there'll be something interesting for you to select there. So, what's next? You got to summarise the main points and ideas of the article in your own words. So, 3 to 5 bullet points is usually perfectly fine. So that is step 2, summarising the main points and ideas, and it's important to use your own words because you know yourself that own words questions are challenging and it's good to challenge yourself. And as you can see there's a variety of different ways that you can artistically present bullet points if you wish, or maybe like me, you'll just use some dots. Not very exciting, but there we go. Next up, step 3, state the purpose of the article, and keep in mind it might have multiple purposes. So it could be to entertain, to inform, to persuade, to educate, to examine, to explore, to describe, to report, to criticise. The writer might try to be doing any one of these things or many of them all at the same time in the article. So decide for yourself. And then step 4, quote a word, phrase or sentence from your article that backs up your choice of purpose. So for step 3, if you have said this article is designed to inform the reader, for step 4, quote something from the article that backs up your choice that the article has been written to inform. Next up, step 5, identify the tone of the article. And once again, remember, there might be more than one at play in the article that you have selected. So usually, when I'm talking to classes, I tend to say, start with positive and negative, and then if you can, move on to attitude tone words. So if at National 5 you can say it has a positive tone or a negative tone, that's pretty good, it's a good start. But obviously you want to start to advance your vocabulary and try to be a bit more specific about the tone. So for positive tones, you might want to say it's friendly, hopeful, romantic, calm, cheerful, surprised, optimistic, excited, sympathetic, passionate, confident, peaceful, proud, and happy. If it's a negative tone, maybe you'll go a bit further and say it's accusing, it's furious, it's harsh, it's shameful, it's angry, snooty, critical, insulting, disappointed, irritated, disgusted, outraged, argumentative, or bitter. And then you might get into slightly more sophisticated attitude tone words. So you could say that it's got a bantering tone, mocking, sarcastic, comical, silly, ironic, pompous, teasing, irreverent, cynical, joking, sad, giddy, or sardonic. If any of the words that have appeared on the screen there are unfamiliar to you, then you've got step 5A, which is to go look them up in an online dictionary and learn those words. Step 6 is to quote a word, phrase, or sentence that backs up your choice of tone and analyse how the tone is created. So for step 5, if you have said that the article has a disappointed tone, then please quote a word, phrase, or sentence that backs up that choice, and then analyse how that word, phrase, or sentence creates that tone. Next up, step 7, identify 3 techniques that have been employed by the writer, analyse each one, and explain their effects. So we're getting down into the nitty-gritty of close reading here. So, the easiest ones to go for. Start with word choice. Pick out, identify the most important words. Quote them. Analyse the connotations of the words. What are the associations with that word? Discuss the effect of the word in the sentence or paragraph that you've been looking at. Explain how the word helps you to understand the writer's ideas or opinions. For something a little bit more complicated, why not move on to imagery? Pick out or identify the simile, metaphor, or personification that you found in the article. Quote that image and then analyse it. You could use the old favourite formula, just as, so too, and then go on to discuss the effect of the image. How has that piece of imagery helped you understand something about the writer's idea or opinion? And if you want to get into the nuts and bolts of language, then why not have a little look at sentence structure? So pick out and identify short and long sentences, lists, repetition, parenthesis, or punctuation. Quote that example, discuss the effect of it, explain how the example helps you understand the writer's ideas or opinions. Different techniques, but ultimately we're always coming back to understanding the writer's ideas and opinions. So, step 8, identify 3 words from the article that are unfamiliar to you, write them down, look up the meaning in an online dictionary, and note that down too. So, as you read, you may want to highlight the article if you've printed it out for yourselves. Any words at all that you just do not understand, it's perfectly okay. I don't understand every single word and everything that I read. I have to go use the dictionary and look things up as well. I'm always learning new words, and learning new words expands your vocabulary, which makes close reading skills much, much easier to develop. The wider your vocabulary, the better you will get at close reading. Also, just a quick plug, if you are a bit of a nerd for words and language, you could always follow Susie Dent on Twitter. You might know her from Countdown or 8 out of 10 Cats Do Countdown, if you're allowed to stay up and watch that programme. And on Twitter, she sometimes posts interesting words that I've never heard of before, like that first tweet where the word lucifugal, it sounds about right, which means fleeing the light, peeking out from the duvet and promptly diving back under is her example. I think we can all relate to that. And sometimes she talks about the origins and evolution of language. So in that second tweet, she's talking about the exclamation mark and how in the past it's been called a screamer, a note of admiration, a shriek mark, gasper, a pling, bang, a shout pole, a slammer. So I've probably revealed far too much about my geeky language obsession, but it might be something for you to follow that will help with your vocab. Also, for the exceptionally well read who might be watching this, if you read your article and you just cannot find 3 words unfamiliar to you, you know all the words ever, then write down the definitions of 3 words from the article that you think are complex, sophisticated, or interesting. Or maybe pick words that you think your friends or family wouldn't know and then test them. See if they are as good at you when it comes to vocabulary. Finally, step 9, think about the opinions, ideas and issues raised in the article you have read. Write a short personal response to the article. So what's your opinion on this issue? Do you have any questions after reading the article that you would like to find out or ask someone or research yourself? Do you agree or disagree with the writer? Note down a short personal response. It's time to give your opinion. And then step 10, share the article and the notes that you've made. You can do that in a number of different ways. You can share it with your teacher. If you're in one of my English classes, I would love to see some of the articles that you've selected and some of the notes that you've made, so you can send that to me via email, and I'm sure your English teacher would be happy, especially during this lockdown period, to hear from you and see some of the articles that you've been reading and some of the work that you've been doing. You could also share it with a parent or carer, have a conversation about what you've read, get them to read the article and see what they think about it, have a chat about their opinions and how they may agree or disagree with it as well, and if that contrasts with you, it can be a great conversation starter. Also, you could share it on social media. You could use the hashtag Nat5Hire RUAE as well. You could post a link to the article and maybe some screenshots of some of the notes that you have made. I would certainly be happy to see some of that stuff. So, is this really going to help you with your close reading? Absolutely. If the only newspaper article you ever look at is the one that you sit down and look at on the day of an assessment or an exam, then how can you be expected to do as well in that assessment or exam? That would be like me saying, I'm going to run a marathon and then just leaving my flat in the morning and trying to run 26 miles. I would probably collapse in a sweaty heap after about, 3 metres. So I would obviously, in advance of that, do some practice runs, do some short runs. So in advance of an exam where you're being asked to look at a newspaper article, why would you not spend your time once a week, once a fortnight, looking at other newspaper articles and trying to deconstruct them? And it's not just repeatedly doing past papers, which can get a little bit boring for people. So hopefully you found this interesting, and hopefully you're well on your way to improving your RUE skills.